God,
grant me the serenity
to accept the things I cannot change,
the courage to change the things I can,
and the wisdom to know the difference.
In this episode of Overcoming Addiction, we will be discussing the importance of community collaboration. Tonight's guests are Detective Rory Lockowitz of the Medford Police Department and Penny Funaiole, the Outreach Manager for the City of Medford. Together we can make a difference. Here's your host, Paul Hammersley.
Welcome to another episode of Overcoming Addiction. My name's Paul Hammersley, and I'm also the president of Malden Overcoming Addiction. And tonight we want to talk about the importance of community collaboration, and I have two very special guests with me on the show. I have Detective Rory Lockowitz. How are you, Rory?
Paul, good to see you.
And Penny Funaiole from the City of Medford. And we want to talk about, there's so many good things going on in the city that a lot of people may not know between the two cities, and collaborating amongst each other in what we all know and feel on a daily basis on what's going on out there between the opioid epidemic and many other problems, whether it's mental health. There's just so much stuff going on that folks need assistance with. And I found you guys doing something called a hub meeting. And we're going to focus tonight on what a hub meeting actually is, what it does, who it provides for, who it provides to. A lot of people are hearing hub meeting. No one knows what that is. So my first question, whoever wants to take it first, please feel free. Let's tell the people, what is a hub meeting?
So the hub meeting is a weekly meeting that we gather providers. So multiple social service agencies, folks from the fire department to the police department, the health department, and then, DCF, DMH, our mental health provider, Elliot, is there for our region. Mystic Valley Elder Services there. And the reason that they're all there in the room every week is because we are creating efficiencies around the way that we're communicating about high risk individuals. So this is where someone is at high risk, they have current harm right now, they have potential for future harm, and they need more than one service to address this issue. Communication one agency to another can happen anywhere, any day, but where we're able to sort of sit as a whole in one room and work together as a team. No one owns that meeting. I facilitate the meeting. We do a system of making sure that the meeting is efficient, but really and truly, we're all there together. We're all partners in this collaboration, and we all look to each other. Is this something that we think we all and should work on? So that's the sort of basis of why we're doing the hub, bringing these partners together to address high-risk individuals in our community.
So, for instance, I'm going to give an example. I'm not going to use any names, and just so folks will clearly understand exactly the importance of this. And Rory, you can take the question, it's just a statement I'm going to make. For instance, today, I went and met you guys. Every Tuesday we meet in Medford City Hall, and there's a whole slew of resources in that room. Like you said, everything from DCF to the health department to the schools are there, the Medford Police and Medford Fire, and I had a case here in Malden. It was presented to me that was more than I could handle from my particular job, and that case involved mental health. That case involved, there was a lot of risk factors that needed much more assistance than I could give it. So I brought it to the hub. I read off, we'll say the name was Jane Smith. I read off what Jane Smith had going on, and instantly everyone in the room decided if this is a hub case, and if it is, we decided what partners should get on there, and then we go do a home visit and hand resources to the person in question. Is that a fair assessment, real quick?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Rory, please, tell me about the hub.
Well, to add on to what Penny just said, it's a new way of, I love the term silo busting. We have lots of agencies and resources that traditionally are very good at doing their job. The police department, the fire department, elder services. What we've found over the last couple years through the hub is that the collaboration of these agencies at the same time, when the risk factors are so high, and we use certain terminology. We use the phrase acutely elevated risk. So there's so many risk factors going on that we feel like, quote unquote, the house is on fire, right? We need to do something now. Any officer or professional involved in that situation they're going to walk away and say, we're going to be back there. You know that the problem isn't solved because the problem is so wide. So with that thought that we need more than 2 agencies to act, and we need them to act now, we present a situation to the hub solely based on risk factors.
And that's the
as you were
police
mentioning.
department.
Yes.
So that this is amazing because the Medford Police Department is that involved in the hub where they will present a case and show up and be on hand. And this is the importance of the hub, is the people that actually get in and collaborate.
Absolutely.
Okay, so continue.
Well, so we'll present the situation to the hub, and everybody has an equal stake. Now, it doesn't have to be the police department that brings up
Correct.
the situation, but oftentimes it is because somebody dials 911, the police walk in, and regardless of the outcome of the situation, the officers then write a report based on what was going on. So many times that'll come to my desk, and I'll say, wow, you know, based on the history and the risk factors and all of these different agencies that may be currently involved in working with the family. I like to give the example of maybe a family that's in crisis, maybe there's addiction in the home, maybe their housing is in jeopardy, maybe there's a child in the school system that's struggling, and each agency representing one of those, a domestic violence detective, DCF, maybe the schools, maybe there's a mental health counselor, maybe there should be substance abuse counseling. But when you look at everybody that's looking at this family and recognizing we're not on a conference call every morning saying, hey, did you speak with the father about this? Did you speak with the child? Did the wife make the appointment? Like, so when we put together the key figures of these agencies together, the outcomes sometimes are tremendous. And I don't see a situation where we would have had the same outcome prior to us getting involved in having these weekly hub meetings.
Amazing, and I could just continue with that, but I want to move on because there's so much I want to cover.
Yeah.
So how did the relationship between the police department and the health department begin? Like, how did that happen?
So we in Medford got a drug-free communities grant in 2004, and that sort of got us started building the capacity in the community. So we were able to get some data collection with the youth and really start thinking about doing compliance checks. So then we also got a new grant called an underage drinking grant, which led to regular compliance checks for alcohol. And with that came a regular sort of going out, checking on these, provider, the stores really, right? And with that built that relationship. On top of that, we were attending community policing meetings. So we were kind of putting ourselves in there to say, hey, we're a partner, we're here to help. We were able to write for another grant. And what we said was, well, we could write for a grant. It was called a Stop Back grant. And we could have written for it and taken all the money for the Board of Health. We didn't have to, or the health department, we didn't have to give to police department. We said, if we're going to do really good work and we're going to get the police department to participate, we should really figure out how to fund them to be able to do this work, right? This is above and beyond their workload. How can we get them to be participants at a full level where they're starting to lead this issue? So at that time, that's when Rory and I really started to become a partnership in the community as we started working on a youth diversion program. And that really is the start of it all, I would say. That brought us dollars to bring trainings to officers to understand substance use and how that works. But as that kind of grew, it grew along with the opioid epidemic. And really the officers were like, look, what are you doing here talking about underage drinking when we have opioid overdoses happening in our community? And we're like, we know that, and we're going to look for a way to fix that or to participate in making this better. And we did that through a regional grant, which includes Malden, our Massachusetts Opioid Abuse Prevention Collaborative grant. And so we've worked over that time to really think about, like, how are we understanding how many overdoses there are? So looking at police reports and how officers are reporting overdoses, getting Narcan into the hands of the police and the fire. So it's been progressive, and ultimately we got to a point where officers were starting to do some training around crisis intervention, and a new stream of funding came that said we could put a co-responder, a social worker, in the police department, but you could write for another option. And our option was to continue to build the capacity at the station and create a role in the department that would address mental health substance use cases directly, so that they were leading the charge, not the health department asking, or the outreach really saying, hey, can we go out and check on these people? It turned the table so that the officers were saying, we want to go check on these people, come with us. And that shift is really where we're at right now. That's how we can start this hub table. That's how we can have really like full partnership with the police officers, because this is their wheelhouse, right? They're showing up, responding to an incident, and that's not my job. I've never done that before. So there's no reason for me to say that I do know what to do with that call or how to handle that. So now having the officer there, like owning it, is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I know that, Chelsea has a hub, and I know the work that Medford is doing is leading the way, and Malden could not be happier. I've been attending for maybe 6 months now, and watching what you guys are doing and laying that groundwork and setting that example. It's a model that you're setting, and it's absolutely amazing. It's working, it's saving lives, and I'm so happy to be part of that with you guys. And
I'm glad you brought up Chelsea. I don't think we can ever go on record and talk about the work that we're doing without giving credit. The Chelsea Police Department 4+ years ago brought a team of people from Canada to train their department, and they launched the first hub in this country. And from there, they have spread the good word of the power of this collaboration. Boston has a pilot program going on. Springfield.
Worcester, 4 coming up on the South Shore.
There's a whole bunch. I had the pleasure of sneaking in with these same trainers from Canada a year ago in June. So we launched our hub table in September, October of last year. So about a year and a half ago.
No, is that a year? Was that? Okay, yes, you're right.
Time flies.
yeah,
It feels
So-
like it's been longer.
Yeah, so
so
Chelsea
last
always
year,
deserves
though,
credit.
was
for
2018.
absolutely.
We're working around even further. So anyway, I was just clarifying. We've been doing this for a little bit longer than that.
But kudos to Chelsea, because Chelsea was originally the pioneer
Yes.
Yes.
around here.
And for them to be the first department, obviously there's a good amount of risk about having conversations about
Right.
agencies sharing information and reports, and the thought that someone from the psychiatry division of a hospital and a police officer and an elder services worker are going to sit down and collaborate and talk about certain details. But when you look at certain situations, it's absolutely crucial. So they took a great risk for that, and we thank them for it, because it's made a great difference for us, and it is
As we learned today,
growing in Malden as well.
again, I brought that case in front of the hub table today. We went and assisted a resident this afternoon, same day. I can't say enough, because I didn't have those resources
Yeah,
6 months ago.
right.
We didn't have that here in Malden.
Yeah.
So now by collaborating, it's all about collaboration, and by collaborating with Medford and hopefully other
Yeah.
surrounding communities will jump in with us. It's just, it's needed, it's amazing, and it's working. And I want to ask, if we already didn't say it, but what would you call your individual roles on this team effort? Like, as a detective with the Medford Police Department, what do you feel your individual role is, like, to the hub?
Wow.
Try to break it down.
Big question.
Yeah.
My role is, I'll stall by saying it's evolving. Because of the grant funding, that the last thing that Penny mentioned was that we were looking for either a clinician to work with the department or to try to work within the department and kind of grow from out. And we went in that direction. And we used the funding that Penny was able to help get through a grant to create a role within the police department that I went into. Since then, we've worked on so many different small obstacles to gather information, to improve our systems so that we can improve our data. There's 100 little facets to what I do. Ultimately, I think the most important thing is that we look at all of the incoming calls and situations, recognize that while one call might talk about officers going and calming a domestic argument, and they write a report, everybody was advised of their rights, there was no criminal activity, we're clear. And then I take a look at that and I recognize maybe somebody in that report from a prior report had issues. Maybe it was mental health or substance use. There's something else going on there. We found, surprisingly, a large number of single isolated elders in the community that end up with Board of Health concerns, building concerns, hoarding, sanitary conditions, housing conditions, and then traditionally, I don't know what the outcome was, but the lack of communication, and go back to the hub. So the point is, I've seen well-being checks where somebody knocks on the door and they complain about follow-up to be done by the Board of Health for unsanitary conditions. Well, a report to me like that is often a hub situation. There are a lot of people that need to get involved. We're often talking about somebody who has a mental health concern, and there is a legitimate building and health concern, but we don't want to take that person out of their house. Right? We don't want to create more fear and harm and crisis for that person. So there has to be this creative, collaborative way to do it. And I'm proud to say that a lot of the work I do is taking what was data collection and all these little system improvements, and then recognizing, and connecting the dots, and then bringing them forward to the hub. Or because of the hub and the solid relationships that we've established with all of these partners, sometimes it may not be, I'm waiting for Tuesday for a hub meeting. It might be that I know that somebody was a hub case 3 months ago, and that I immediately recognized that this name popped up, and I contact the people that were on that team 3 months ago and say, here I am typing on your desk. Here's a police report for you. Let's talk 5 minutes. Officers went to the house and had this experience yesterday, and then they know what to do because we're kind of already involved in it.
Again, Rory, I can't stress enough, thank you to the Medford Police Department and just what you guys are doing. We're here tonight, and I'm giving kudos where it's deserved because it's what I'm seeing. I know it will spread. I know other communities will eventually get there, but this is what needs to happen now, and we need to do shows like this to get the message out there. So, Penny, same question. If you can just give me a couple of minutes, what exactly is your role? I know you work inside City Hall on your day job.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What's your role with the hub?
So my role with the hub is I'm facilitating the meeting. I'm just making sure that we're being efficient, running through this. It's a very specific process. There's a TV. Everybody's able to see exactly what I'm doing. I'm ultimately collecting data as we're going along and assigning teams. So we're identifying what the risk factors are. We're assigning teams, and then the next week people come back and we're figuring out what happened. What was the resolution with that particular case? My position within the city is that ultimately what a prevention and outreach manager does, or what I do, is I'm looking at the system. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking at data to find out, or really so when I say data, I mean numbers, percentages of this is happening, whatever, but also contextual data. So that's interviews with people, police report that might give me some information about other things that might be happening in the community, right?
So you might look at alcohol use versus opioid use versus, okay.
And what I'm doing is I'm thinking, okay, so what are our resources? What do we need for money? What's ways that we can create efficiencies? So one way we can create efficiencies is utilize our agencies to the fullest possible ability. And then once we've maxed that out, then we say, okay, they can't do X, Y, Z. Let's figure out how to get more resources so we can fix the problem, right? So I'm looking at sort of, what's that? So I'm monitoring what's happening. I'm figuring out with everybody as a team, facilitating groups of people, the knowledge base of all this work. How can we do this better? How can we make these things happen? But then also, we're looking at more and more what else is contributing. And so, you start out with a source of funding that says you got to do this around this. We started this hub because of opioid overdoses, right? We are a whole community dedicated to figuring out how to save lives. We can't. I mean, I could cry about all the people that we've lost. It's not fair. But what we found was that we found more and more, like Rory said, elders and social isolation. We're finding so much of this mental health in the home along with an elder in the home. So oddly, now I'm writing grants for how do we do a regional approach to elder mental health needs, right? So because I know, because I've heard from Malden and you brought cases for it, there are hoarders in Malden, there are hoarders in Wakefield and Melrose, and hoarding is a very complex mental health issue. It causes a lot of public health concerns, but ultimately it's that individual is having a really hard time parting with their things, and taking their things away from them is traumatizing them more. So I kind of, basically the way I really see this is, it's my job to learn your job. It's my job to learn what the police do. It's my job to learn what every person within a school does and within the community, so that I can look at the bigger picture and figure out how can we create efficiencies, and how can I accurately write for money so that we can start putting money towards fixing these problems. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense,
Okay.
and it's amazing. And I do want to take, quickly, I have a couple of more questions, and I want to know the key ways in which you guys work together. So I see you together a lot. We see each other at trainings.
Yeah.
I come to the hub. You guys are kind of joined at the hip in a lot of this work. So can you just explain that, like the key ways in which you work together? Tell me about it.
Well, I think a little bit of our history probably helps answer that question. When we first started working together, you know, my responsibilities were working as a patrol officer, working nights. And then Penny and I would get together about 4 hours a week for Stop Act grant or one of the other underage drinking prevention grants. And we often would have conversations about how can we create programming that officers will be able to utilize for a diversion program, or how can we get training to officers about, you know, certain aspects of the law and how our program. And we found ourselves professionally butting heads, as in Penny would come up with a suggestion and I would say, well, that's not really how it works, right? We're not going to get 20 officers to show up to a training tomorrow on their day off without being compensated, when they could try and you know, work another assignment, or, you know, spend time with their families. And then on the flip side, you know, I would look at Penny and say, well, you know, why can't you have involvement with grants? Why isn't there money just falling from the sky? You know, we found ourselves looking at things from different silos, if you will, and then figuring out, all right, well, this is how our culture is. This is how your side of the world works, and how do we make that work together? And it just grew and grew and grew.
Well, I tell you, you're doing, both of you guys, it's, again, it fits. It's fantastic. And with the time I have left, Penny, I'm going to give you the next question.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of stuff I haven't covered on things that I know that Medford's doing.
Yeah.
So, like, what are other ways you are organizing community efforts to support families? Like, this is huge. I want to know what exactly Medford is doing, you know, and the hub to support families. Please.
So one way that we've really started supporting families is, so just to sort of give the bigger picture of what's going on in Medford, I have my position. I'm managing my office. The office has a recovery coach in it, and then it also has a grant-funded coordinator for prescription drug prevention. Same grant that Malden has, same sort of structure in that way. And then we have that regional grant, that overdose prevention grant that we've had for 7 years. So I'm sort of looking at all that, and what happens is that you end up saying, this is exactly what we want to do. We want to solve this problem. We've heard from everybody that these are the risk factors, or these are the key reasons why something's happening, and then we set up programming. So for families, our recovery coach does a lot of work with supporting families.
So is there a drop-in center?
So we do have a drop-in center.
With your recovery coach there?
With our recovery coach there. It's on Wednesday nights, 5:30, every Wednesday night. What that's turned into is a really solid peer group that's meeting and talking and sort of...
Right at City Hall?
Right at City Hall.
Amazing.
Right. Yeah. And so we're doing, a lot of our work is around that. We're doing programming, like more on the prevention side. We just completed a 4-week series on something called In the Middle. We had a really wonderful psychologist who led, a group of parents through a process to really think about how they can work with their middle school kids. And then in March, we're going to be doing Hidden in Plain Sight and having someone come and talk about marijuana and vaping and what that means. And we hope to continue to grow out some of that around mental health, first aid for the community. And
So you got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Distributing naloxone and door knocks. You guys are doing that too. Do you actually physically, Rory, go on a door knock?
Yes.
And like who? Give me 1 minute. What's that like? Who do you take with you?
We take our recovery coach, Alicia.
So a door knock for what? Maybe someone who has OD'd.
Yep, definitely for any non-fatal overdose. Alicia and myself, or my partner, Chris Coughlin, Detective Coughlin. We will knock on the door, offer help, offer naloxone if they want to be trained on it. We can actually distribute it right there at their home. It was surprising at first, but almost everybody is very welcome. That was shocking for myself. I figured, police are going to show up at your door and maybe they're going to shut the door in my face. You show up and you say, hey, we know that there was a recent incident. We're here to help. She's a recovery coach. I'm with the police department. We do outreach.
So are they receptive?
Almost everybody is some people say thank you, but no thank you.
Right.
And we'll leave them a packet of information. And some of those packets have turned into phone calls saying,
So you'll
"Do you
have
want help?"
something put together before you go there
Yep.
Yeah.
with some information in it in case they say no, you can leave it. And if you can engage, you'll also have Narcan, and I take it that the recovery coach might be a train the trainer?
Yep.
So she can, right there on the spot, show the person
Right.
how to use it, and
Provide it.
Absolutely.
wow.
Yeah.
And so, you've seen this work.
Countless times.
So
It's-
some people have taken you up on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are calling us, sometimes they call 6 months later, sometimes they call, and sometimes they show up that night at the drop-in or something. So we're pretty fortunate with that. Alicia is magic. I have to make sure everybody knows that. She should have been here with us. She has some commitments, but she's just tremendous. We're so fortunate. Her and then the recovery coach before her, they're just wonderful in how they engage with people and how they treat people and how respectful this whole thing is for people who are struggling.
This feels like it was 5 minutes.
It does.
And the show...
Time's not up, is it?
It's up. The time is up.
Up,
and
up.
It's up, and I just want to go out with saying that if you're watching the show, or when you do see the show, just know that you can contact Malden Overcoming Addiction. You can connect with the hub. Anything you've heard here tonight, if any of that is up your alley, you can get us at MaldenOvercomingAddiction.com. That's the website. You can get us on Facebook at Malden Overcoming Addiction, on Twitter and Instagram at Malden Overcomes. You can call the phone number 781-838-2203. And again, till next month, stay strong, and we will see you later. Have a great night. Thank you.